Everyone is wrong about this XRP and crypto surge. Tom Lee. The biggest misconception in this crypto surge. Everyone is misreading the crypto market again. It's almost a carbon copy of the 2021 narrative. The so-called experts are all insisting that this time is different, that the market has matured so much we won't see the same euphoric blow-off tops or those aggressive alt-season rotations. They believe that because Wall Street is now involved and regulators are circling, the wild, volatile DNA of crypto has been erased. That's where they're dead wrong. Tom Lee's analysis directly challenges this complacency, and it's becoming painfully clear he's on the right side of the argument. Yes, we've entered a new era of institutional adoption. Yes, the game has changed in terms of players, with spot ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum pulling in unprecedented amounts of capital, and banks like JP Morgan, BlackRock, and Franklin Templeton moving into tokenized assets. But despite these advancements, the underlying psychology of markets hasn't evolved one bit. Crypto is still and always will be powered by the oldest forces in finance: fear, greed, and liquidity cycles. It doesn't matter if the money comes from a hedge fund in New York or a retail investor in South Korea. When the capital flows in, it follows the same path it always has. Don't forget to support the video with a like, because it supports us a lot and helps us reach other people and help them learn important information. Bitcoin rallies first, Ethereum takes the spotlight next, and then the tidal wave hits the altcoins. And if you're watching closely, you can already see the cycle unfolding right now. The numbers don't lie. The total crypto market cap has surged past $3.9 trillion, testing the $4 trillion threshold that many thought was years away. Bitcoin has already smashed through $120,000, a psychological level that has completely reset investor sentiment. Ethereum, often the leading indicator of altcoin season, has climbed to $3,800, its highest point since its last bull market peak. Meanwhile, XRP is holding steady around $3.50, but make no mistake, this is the calm before the storm. Look at the altcoin landscape. XLM, HBAR, ALGO, and even XDC have quietly posted 80 to 100% gains in the past 30 days. These aren't isolated pump-and-dump moves. This is the same early-stage pre-alt season energy we saw in Q3 2017 and mid-2020, right before the market went parabolic. The biggest misconception right now? People believe that because institutions are here, the cycle will look nothing like the past. They think this will be some smooth, gradual appreciation where prices gently climb and stabilize. Wrong. What we're seeing is the exact same structure, except this time, the amount of money flooding in is far larger, and the velocity of these moves will likely be faster and more brutal than anything we've ever witnessed. Tom Lee, one of the most reliable macro voices in this space, has laid out a scenario where Ethereum could hit $10,000 to $15,000 by year-end. That's not just a price prediction. It's a roadmap for what happens to the rest of the market. When Ethereum starts pulling in that much liquidity, the spillover effect on altcoins like XRP will be violent and swift. Imagine this. Ethereum surges past $10,000, and while the mainstream media is busy celebrating Ethereum's new all-time high, XRP quietly triples or quadruples, breaking into double digits for the first time in history. Sounds aggressive, but in reality, this is exactly how liquidity rotations work. By the time the crowd catches on, the smart money is already positioned, and the easy gains are gone. And that's the point I need to drive home. Most investors are always late. They wait for confirmation. They wait for headlines. They wait for that friend who never talks about crypto to finally mention XRP before they make a move. By then, the wave is already halfway through. The coming months will be a pressure cooker for crypto investors. There's going to be a huge divide between those who recognize the signs early and those who are still convinced this cycle is different. It's not different, it's just amplified. Before we dig deeper into the mechanics of this surge, why liquidity rotations work, how Tom Lee's numbers stack up, and why XRP is poised for a historic breakout, make sure you're subscribed to Be Crypto Smart, because the difference between those who catch the wave early and those who chase the top could mean 5x versus 50% gains. If you think the market looks overheated right now, just wait. This next liquidity wave hasn't even started yet. Tom Lee of Fundstrat has built a reputation in crypto that very few analysts can match. He's not the type of guy who chases hype or throws out random moonshot numbers just to get attention. Instead, he's one of the rare voices who's consistently called the big moves before they happened. And right now, his predictions for Ethereum, and by extension the entire crypto market, are making waves on Wall Street and in the crypto space. According to Lee, Ethereum could hit $4,000 by the end of this month, and then explode to $10,000 to $15,000 by the end of this year. These numbers might sound aggressive to the casual investor, but they're not pulled out of thin air. Tom Lee's forecasts are grounded in data, Layer 1 network activity, the meteoric rise of tokenized real-world assets, RWAs, and valuation models borrowed straight from traditional equity markets, specifically free cash flow multiples. To understand why this matters, you need to look at what Ethereum has quietly become. It's no longer just a smart contract platform competing with other chains. It has evolved into the backbone of the digital asset economy. Over $135 billion worth of stablecoins, from USDC to USDT to institutional-grade tokenized dollars, are currently running on the Ethereum network. These stablecoins act like the lifeblood of crypto markets, powering everything from decentralized exchanges to NFT marketplaces to cross-border settlements. But the real story here, the part that few are paying attention to, is the explosion of tokenization. Since January 2024, tokenized real-world assets on Ethereum have grown 20x. We're not talking about small retail experiments here. We're talking about some of the biggest financial giants in the world, BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, Apollo, and WisdomTree, building tokenized funds, bonds, and investment vehicles on Ethereum's rails. BlackRock alone has already signaled that tokenization will be a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, and Ethereum is the network they're leaning on to get there. Each time a new tokenized asset is launched, it locks value into Ethereum's ecosystem, creating a massive liquidity base that historically has a spillover effect. Once Ethereum starts pulling in that much capital, the next phase of the cycle is almost predictable. Large-cap altcoins like XRP, XLM, and HBAR begin their own violent runs. XRP's position, the sleeping giant. XRP is one of the most misunderstood and underappreciated assets in the entire crypto market. While retail investors chase hype-driven meme coins or pour their attention into Ethereum's DeFi narrative, XRP has been quietly building the strongest foundation it's ever had. It's not flashy. It doesn't scream for attention with overhyped narratives. Instead, it's been positioning itself like a coiled spring, ready to explode the moment the liquidity wave rotates into altcoins. Look at the XRP/Ethereum chart, and you'll notice something fascinating. The structure is eerily similar to 2018, right before XRP shocked the entire market by ripping past expectations and temporarily flipping Ethereum in market cap. History might not repeat perfectly, but in crypto it often rhymes, and this setup is looking more and more like the early days of one of XRP's most legendary runs. XRP at $3.50 is still massively undervalued. Right now, XRP is consolidating around $3.50, and yet, compared to its historical potential, this price is almost laughable. XRP's fundamentals have never been this strong, yet it's trading like a sleeping giant that nobody sees coming. The reason? Most investors are still stuck looking backward. They remember the SEC lawsuit years and the slow price action, and they assume XRP is dead money. That's a critical mistake. The narrative that suppressed XRP for years has completely shifted, and now the stage is set for XRP to reclaim its role as a top-tier asset during this alt season. The fundamentals that everyone is ignoring. Ripple's institutional adoption is accelerating. Ripple has transformed from being just another crypto company into one of the most connected players in global finance. Its RippleNet and XRP ledger are being adopted by banks, fintech companies, and remittance providers around the world. Real-world payments are happening over the XRPL in places like Southeast Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. Partnerships with major financial firms mean that XRP is not just speculation. It's being used for actual cross-border settlements. As traditional finance moves toward instant settlement and tokenized liquidity, XRP is perfectly positioned as the bridge currency. The SEC lawsuit is over, clarity is here. For years, the SEC lawsuit cast a shadow over XRP, scaring away U.S. exchanges and institutions. That chapter is closed now. With a favorable resolution and regulatory clarity, XRP is free to trade and integrate across the U.S. market again. This alone is a game changer because it removes the single biggest uncertainty that weighed on XRP's price. On-chain metrics show whale accumulation. Data doesn't lie. On-chain analytics show that XRP reserves on exchanges are shrinking, while large wallets, whales, are quietly accumulating. This is the same type of behavior we've seen before explosive rallies, when big players quietly load up while retail investors are distracted elsewhere. If Ethereum hits $10,000, XRP could explode. Tom Lee's Ethereum forecast of $10,000 to $15,000 by year-end isn't just bullish for ETH holders. It's a signal for the entire altcoin market. If Ethereum brings in that much liquidity, history shows that a large portion of that money will rotate into the next big winners, and XRP is at the front of that line. Based on historical multiples, if Ethereum hits $10,000, XRP could easily surge to $10 to $15 by year-end. Some analysts are even calling for $20 plus if Ethereum's move sparks a true alt-season liquidity surge. These numbers aren't fantasy. They're consistent with XRP's previous performance during peak market conditions, adjusted for the larger scale of capital flowing into crypto today. Bitcoin dominance is cracking. One of the clearest signals for an alt-season is when Bitcoin dominance starts to fall. Right now, Bitcoin dominance is hovering around 61% and dropping. Every time this happens, we see the same sequence. Bitcoin pumps first, taking the spotlight. Ethereum follows, breaking through key resistance and pulling in new capital. Then altcoins explode, often with violent double and triple-digit gains in days or weeks. We're entering that window right now. The altcoin season index is already at 53 out of 100, which historically signals the early stages of alt season. This is when coins like XRP tend to move the fastest, because they have strong liquidity, deep markets, and enough institutional credibility to handle big inflows. Why XRP will outperform speculative tokens. The difference between XRP and the average altcoin is utility and trust. Meme coins and speculative tokens rely on hype cycles to pump, and they dump just as fast. XRP, on the other hand, is deeply embedded in the infrastructure of global payments. Ripple has secured partnerships with over 300 financial institutions. Governments and central banks are exploring CBDC pilots using XRPL. Cross-border transactions worth billions are flowing through Ripple's systems. This means that when capital flows into altcoins, institutional players are far more likely to trust assets like XRP than a random meme token with no real-world application. That trust translates to sustained buying pressure, the exact type of fuel that drives multi-X rallies. The coiled spring effect. Think of XRP right now like a compressed spring. Price has been range-bound for years due to legal overhang. Whales have been accumulating quietly. Real-world usage is increasing behind the scenes. When the lid comes off, and that liquidity wave from Ethereum starts to spill over, the revaluation could be explosive. We're talking about the type of move where XRP jumps from $3.50 to $7, $10, and even higher within weeks, not months. The big picture. This is why calling XRP a sleeping giant isn't hype. It's reality. Every major indicator, from on-chain data to market structure to institutional adoption, points to XRP being one of the top-performing assets of the next alt season. When you combine Ethereum's forecasted rally, the weakening of Bitcoin dominance, the regulatory clarity XRP now enjoys, and the fact that XRP has flipped Ethereum before in market cap, it becomes clear that XRP's real breakout hasn't even started yet. The real drivers of this surge? Liquidity and rotation. The crypto market isn't driven by hype alone. It's driven by liquidity rotation. And this is where everyone gets it wrong. The market isn't in some new institutional era that defies past cycles. It's the same cycle, just with more fuel. The ETF approvals, tokenization of assets, and adoption by major institutions have simply multiplied the amount of liquidity entering the space. Here's how it always works. Bitcoin pumps first, absorbing the majority of fresh liquidity. Ethereum follows, as capital rotates into higher beta assets with strong fundamentals. Altcoins like XRP explode once Ethereum peaks and retail FOMO starts spilling into the rest of the market. Right now, we're transitioning from Phase 1 to Phase 2. Ethereum is already outperforming Bitcoin, up 10% while Bitcoin is flat or slightly negative over the past 7 days. This shift is critical because when Ethereum gains momentum, it unlocks the next wave for altcoins. Tom Lee's forecast is based on a multiples expansion model, similar to how high-growth tech stocks are valued. Ethereum's usage as the backbone of DeFi, tokenized assets, and stablecoins gives it a premium valuation compared to almost any other network. If it hits $15,000, the market cap would explode beyond $1.5 trillion, which historically pulls XRP and other top altcoins into parabolic moves. This is where smart investors accumulate, not when XRP is $10, but when it's $3.50 and everyone is still skeptical. History doesn't repeat exactly, but it rhymes. And this setup is almost identical to the pre-alt season phases of 2017 and 2021. Why XRP holders are about to be right. When the dust settles on this cycle, XRP holders could be the biggest winners. The asset is positioned at the crossroads of institutional adoption, regulatory clarity, and liquidity rotation. While Bitcoin and Ethereum grab headlines, XRP is setting up for its most explosive cycle ever. Let's break it down. Liquidity rotation. As Ethereum pushes toward Tom Lee's $10,000 to $15,000 target, capital will cascade into top-tier altcoins like XRP. Price potential. A conservative 3-5x from here puts XRP at $10 to $15, but a liquidity blow-off could push it past $20. Institutional trust. XRP's partnerships with banks and payment providers make it a magnet for serious money compared to speculative altcoins. Regulatory clarity. With the SEC lawsuit behind it, XRP is one of the few major assets with clear legal standing in the US, a huge advantage as institutions allocate capital. The crypto market runs on momentum and belief, and right now, the belief in XRP is quietly building. When Ethereum starts its next leg up, XRP will not just follow, it will lead. This is why almost everyone is wrong. They're still looking at XRP through the lens of the past, when in reality, the setup for 2025 is unlike anything we've seen before. So, if you're watching this, don't wait until the headlines scream, XRP hits $10. By then, the biggest gains will already be gone. This is the moment to stay alert, stay subscribed, and stay ahead of the herd. Subscribe to Be Crypto Smart right now because we're going to track every key move in this cycle. The next 6 months could be life-changing if you're positioned correctly, and XRP could be the centerpiece of this entire surge.